Thank you.
Hey everybody, good morning. My name is Alex Salazar. I work for the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA. We love security so much, it's twice in our name. Specifically, my title, I'm a Cybersecurity Advisor assigned here in Washington State. With me, I have RJ.
All right, hey everybody, good afternoon. I think someone's a couple hours behind us right now. It's all good. But I am the Cybersecurity State Coordinator. So the difference between mine and Alex's roles is that he's based out of King County and he works with private entities and those who are based out of King County and Seattle, Everett, those localities. But as the state coordinator for Washington, I work with state agencies, counties, tribal governments, and local governments, and all publicly ran critical infrastructure sectors within Washington State. So very happy to be here, and we can move on to our next slide.
Yeah, just a quick disclaimer. We're going to mention maybe some products or company names. It's all meant for educational purposes, not meant to show specific government favor or disfavor. Additionally, just because Alex and RJ say something doesn't mean it's right. Always refer to your organization's information security policies. So what we're going to talk about today, a lot of it is just what is CISA, and you may have seen some scoured our website, but we really want to show you some of the gems that we think you may not be completely aware of. There's a lot of projects and initiatives that happen. Before we talk all that, we always give a nice little threat brief to really talk about what we're facing. I like to make this joke, my first year in InfoSec, and then as you can see, I'm completely bald now. I'm also, I recently became a father 10 months ago, so maybe that helped too.
Yeah, perfect. So who in here has never heard of CISA until today? Okay, perfect. I knew there would be a couple. Awesome. All right, so I'm glad to hear that because I spent 20 years in the United States Army, joined in 2003 and retired in 2023. And when I came out to a cybersecurity summit hosted in Bellevue, I actually learned about CISA myself as a U.S. Army soldier. And I was like, there's an agency that's responsible for critical infrastructure protection and cybersecurity in the government? And yes, it's true. It was actually founded in 2018, and the primary purpose of CISA is critical infrastructure protection and cybersecurity of the United States, right? And so the vision is a secure and resilient infrastructure for the American people, okay? And the way we get after that is by two goals, right? Goal one is to defend today against urgent threats and hazards, right? That is in the short term. And then the long term is securing tomorrow, okay, over months, years, and decades, no matter how long that takes. And so the end state is that we don't plan on going anywhere. We want to be there for the American people, whether that's private or public industry. Next slide. Okay, so critical infrastructure. I've said that a couple times. What is critical infrastructure? Okay, so critical infrastructure is anything so important to the life of the United States and its citizens that if one of those elements was stopped, even for a short period, it would be disastrous to our way of life, okay? And as you can see here, you look at emergency services, our energy, our water, wastewater, okay, communications, information technology. All of these 16 sectors are defined as being critical to our way of life, as American citizens. By a show of hands, who works in one of these sectors as defined by the slide? Great news. If you just raised your hand, you are eligible for no-cost resources provided by the federal government. Yes, it's true. Next slide. All right, so CISA regions. It's like, oh man, I didn't know this was going to be a geography lesson, RJ. All right, so the point of this slide is that there is not someone from Washington, D.C. or Virginia, where CISA headquarters are based out of, telling you how to improve your cybersecurity program, okay? like I mentioned, Alex lives, out of Everett, right? And RJ lives out of a small little military veteran community called DuPont. If you've never heard of it, it's right outside of Joint Base Lewis McChord, about 30 minutes south of Tacoma. But the point is that our children share the same schools as your children. I have a marriage certificate out of Pierce County, and I have a vested interest in securing the networks here in Washington State, right? And that's the point, is that the cybersecurity advisors and the state coordinators have a vested interest in your cybersecurity programs. So when you're looking at this, understand that CISA is in the trenches with you, whether you're in IT, cybersecurity, or one of the other critical infrastructure sectors. All right, next slide.
Yeah, and you can't be a cyber brief without a cyber threat portion, right? There's a lot of reports out there, and I'm sure this briefings you've heard some other reporting, or Mandiant annual reports, or Google threat briefings, stuff like that. A report I always like to refer to is the IC3 report, or the Internet Crime Complaint Center. I know it says 23 up there. I checked this earlier this week, and unfortunately, thank you. Unfortunately, they still haven't published their 2024 slide quite yet, but I imagine it may not be too different, or if it is, that'll be interesting. No surprise, phishing in their most recent report was the top delivery mechanism for cybercrime to organizations. And actually, I want to take a step back. IC3 is where your grandma might go to if she's scammed, to where a Fortune 500 company is going to go report if there's a large-scale ransomware attack. So IC3 is kind of this, it's an internet crime complaint center. That's what it is. So the FBI uses it for everybody. And so they compile all this data, and they're able to make some of these determinations. They also group it by sectors like we do. Healthcare in this report was the most targeted sector. And this is actually before all the Change Healthcare stuff that you saw. So it'll be interesting what the 24 report looks like. In terms of ransomware variants, they actually started tracking that as well. The FBI has lead on that. They determined that in 2023, Lockbit and Alfie were some of the most top ransomware variants. And this isn't a good metric, but we moved up. So in terms of losses, Washington State went from number 7 in the nation to number 5, meaning if you're a business operating in Washington State, you're in a higher likelihood of receiving cybercrime losses, or at least according to these metrics. So this is a great place to kind of understand, first of all, what are some of the top delivery mechanisms, but also it's a great place to really see some of the trends that are happening nationwide. FBI also publishes these great flash reports. If you're an InfraGard member, you get these emailed. If not, sometimes you have to be on special distros. Usually they're TOP Clear or TOP Green. This one was specific to Black Cat. And I like to just talk when we start like cyber criminals, somebody who has an objective for a financial gain, or sometimes a motivational gain in your environment. They're not using sometimes some of the premier zero-day exploits that you might be expecting a well-funded operator to do. A lot of the time, and I love this bulletin, it's really living off the land stuff. This threat continues into today. Along with phishing, it's just using your native tools to bypass whatever, $2 million contract stock you have, or all of that is great. But if some of these living off the land tools aren't hardened or secured, your attack may happen from this. I like to also put this little news blurb for Black Cat. When you're dealing with criminals, they have no morals. They have no they don't owe you anything. If anything, they just robbed you. So if you're negotiating a ransomware payment with these criminals, in this case, after they got their payout, they imploded. They started backstabbing each other. So if you're that organization on the other side that was expecting a decryption key, it's like, I really like to put this slide up here because, it may be tempting to pay that ransom, but really you have to understand that on the other side of that is somebody that doesn't really have any good intentions. Additionally, so we're moving from cybercrime to nation state. One of our most recent advisories on this that you've probably seen a lot of news about is Volt Typhoon. So Volt Typhoon, this is interesting. When I present this slide, I like to go back to when I was a brand new intelligence soldier in the Army. We would have talks that the People's Republic of China, so not the Chinese people, but the government of China, is trying to infiltrate our critical infrastructure in SCIFs, in these secret areas. We didn't really talk about that on the outside. When this publication was posted, I was shocked. I was like, whoa, like we're coming out here and we're talking about this now, like, dang. For me, what that tells me is like no longer are we keeping these facts and instances under wraps. Like we're, you know, it is the needle has moved, the environment has changed, and as we can see with the World Typhoon Advisory, they've been pretty blatant about their infiltration of certain critical infrastructure. So we have a whole great advisory that actually has some IOCs, from MD5 hashes to specific attack chains to specific, I mean, the IPs are good, but you know, actors always roll their IPs anyways. But there's a really good article on that. So what can you do against these cyber criminals and nation states? Well, you know, CISA, that's one of our, as a cyber defense agency, that's really what we're here for. You know, we'll publish publications like that I just showed you, but really our meat and butter is in giving you some of the latest and greatest cyber initiatives.
All right, thank you, Alex. So secure by design, okay? So secure by design, secured by default. It's a key principle in modern cybersecurity, right? And it is intended to mean that when either hardware or software is designed, it's secure from the get-go. You know, it means that if you're getting a switch or a router, you're not having to close the ports because they're already closed. You're going to open them because that's what security looks like. You know, you're not going to have to read, you know, a guide on how to secure your device. You're going to read what's called a loosening guide. You know, and the idea is that, you know, security shouldn't be, you know, something you need a PhD to figure out, because companies are already paying security engineers to figure this stuff out. So let's engineer this stuff right from the get-go. You know, and so more and more companies are buying into this concept, you know, and I'll tell you, like, not that I favor one or the other, because again, I'm a federal employee, but, you know, Microsoft, you know, took upon itself to stop charging, you know, access to security logs. You know, there was a time when you actually had to pay, you know, certain vendors for access to your own logs, right? And so when you think about your security and future procurement strategies, you should be looking at vendors that have that principle in mind, right? And so, you know, if that's something you're interested in, we have more information in here. And to continue the secure by design theme, let's get into the software bill of materials. All right, so 2011. Who was around and remembers the Log4 shell or Log4j vulnerability? All right, so I think I told a few of you, maybe this whole room, that I was a little sheltered in the Department of Defense, right? I was in the United States Army for 20 years, and you know, being on a closed network in the DoD, we didn't experience a lot of disruption on DoD networks. However, some of our vendors did. You know, because if you were using any open source software that had Log4j, then you were immediately exposed to that vulnerability, right? And so the idea behind, you know, SBOM is that you essentially get a nutrition label of the software, okay? And that includes the supplier name, component versions, dependency relationships, and much more, right? And so this is another big component of secure by design, you know, and CISA is pushing it. And honestly, going back to procurement strategies, you know, when, you know, if you're not in that game, but you know the person in your organization who does, say like, hey, look, when we're going out and looking for that piece of software, you know, for this, you know, department head, are we looking at, you know, the components of that piece of software, because the SBOM is important, right? And again, if you'd like to know more about it, I'll gladly forward you that information. So, next slide. Cloud security. All right, so who in here does everything on-prem? All right, cool. We got a couple. I love it. Okay, there's nothing wrong with that. If you're doing everything on-prem, you completely own, your security for sure. For those who have transitioned to the cloud, good news. CISA actually has developed a couple of configuration guides, scripts that can be downloaded. No cost, whether you're in Azure or Google. And as you can see here, that little bullet right there, that script can be ran in less than 10 minutes. So, no joke, within the last year, one of my peers, boom, this guy here, was doing a presentation, and a cloud engineer is like, okay, let me see if this is actually accurate. When it was sitting in the back of one of these presentations, downloaded a script, ran the configuration baseline against his platform, and said, no joke, this thing is actually accurate. Because what the script does is it pops out a little output here, and then it actually shows you, based off of industry guidelines, what's good, what's not. And this engineer had some questions for Alex after the presentation, which was a pretty impressive thing that in less than 10 minutes, you could have some results, further securing your cloud platform. So again, this is another no-cost resource. And who did I tell you was eligible for no-cost resources? Pretty much everybody in this room who raised their hand already. So keep that in mind. And if you're not jumping on Scuba now, then maybe after this presentation. Next slide.
One of the next projects that we get is actually a project we inherited from the United Kingdom NCSC, National Security Centre that they have. Or center, but they just spell it Centre. But logging made easy. I like to really refer to this slide because it helps you really, you can see this, but you don't really get it. But really with this slide, it's an elk stack, right? It's an open source project that CISA is maintaining where you have a server that's aggregating and giving you some filtering and some dashboards. You have a process server, obviously, receiving some of those logs. And then you have a client that you're provisioning from your elk server and you're installing on your machines. And really, it's just a homegrown IDS. It's not an IPS. But if you are low on budget, if you're low on resources, or if you're kind of butting heads with the budgeting team, this is a no-source solution. The only thing it's really going to cost you is your time, of course. Which if you're a 1,000 user environment, that's probably going to be a time. But if you're like around 120, 200 user environment, this might be a little bit manageable. You can download it from our GitHub page, which is github.com/CISA.gov LME. The next side, anybody heard of KEVs, KEVs? Good amount of hands. I'm glad about that. If you haven't, KEVs, Known Explorer Vulnerabilities Catalog, is a project that has been around since at least 21, 22, I would say. When I was last a cyber defender over at the Dub, we were definitely referring to it when it was getting published. So you have CVEs, right? Common vulnerabilities, exposures, common vulnerabilities and exposures. And that's the theory of it, of what could happen, right? There's this thing, and this is the belief that it could happen. The KAV is this data attribute that CISA is maintaining. And we say that, hey, for this CVE, we have received threat intelligence that there is a proof of concept and it's actively being exploited. So if you have a whole, you ran a Nessus scan, you got a fat stack of vulnerabilities, the KAV helps you kind of bring up those ones that are probably the ones you should be going after. We all have finite time, we all have finite resources, but the KAV is just one more tool for you to prioritize your vulnerabilities. That QR code takes you to our KAV site. For you folks that like JSON, we even have a JSON schema. You can configure an API to, for whatever internal tools that you have. Next, when it comes to collaboration, whenever we have briefs, we get asked like, hey, well, is CISA working in a silo? We're not. We're actually all the way back in 2021, we stood up the Joint Cyber Defense Collaborative. There's a lot of partners, to include some in this campus, that signed up with that. And really, it even has now expanded to international partners. It's really become that large organization that is compiling a lot of the industry best practices or trying to nudge the industry a certain way. I would also say it helps us because it attaches kind of some of our more strategic folks in DC to some of the more strategic folks in your organization. So RJ and Alex aren't going to be connecting with the CEO of Microsoft to help them enroll in the JCDC. We give some special or there's some specific contacts over the JCDC for that. Lastly, ransomware. Can't have a cyber brief without talking about ransomware. If you haven't heard of it, we have a whole website on it. It's called StopRansomware.gov. This is a great site because if you haven't, maybe tailored your incident response plan specific to ransomware, we have a whole section where if you wake up one morning, the encryption events happen, I will always point you to you've been hit by ransomware. The sublink we have, because it has a whole step process that really breaks down the pickerel process or whatever process you follow for incident response and helps you contain, eradicate, and then recover from your ransomware event. Additionally, we're tracking ransomware groups on this site and also posting some of the latest and greatest.
All right, that brings us to working with CISA. Okay, so as you can see here, there is a nice little graph or bar, and you can see that 80% of our efforts is in prevention and resiliency, only 20% in response. The reason behind that is because we want to help you secure your environments. We want to help you be resilient. And some of those mechanisms we do that help you get there are through assessments and evaluations. Some of the assessments that myself, Alex, other CSAs, cybersecurity advisors can perform are cybersecurity performance goals, cyber resilience reviews. You see vulnerability scanning, cyber hygiene. Every single thing listed here is no cost. I think the previous speaker spoke to a pen test. Did you know that if you are critical infrastructure sector that you can actually get a no-cost pen test through CISA? Yes, that's true. National asset, there is a little bit of a waiting list, but it is very possible. And then, of course, talked about scuba. Next graphic here. Partnership development. Alex hit up the JCDC. Very cool, big working group. Preparedness activities. So we can provide cybersecurity training for your organization. The CSET tool is a tool we actually use to do our assessments. Moving on to strategic messaging. All right, Cyber Security Awareness Month. Who participates in that fun 30 days? All right, so we can help your organization. We actually have an entire web page full of resources that can help you prepare for that critical month. Okay, now moving on to the 20% response. All right, this is the part that I do not like to be in, because if you are here, typically we're talking about a crime scene, right? So when this happens, a lot of the times we are in incident coordination. We're working with Department of Justice, our FBI brothers and sisters, but I have done targeted incident notifications before here in the state of Washington. It's a very unfortunate thing when I have to make a call and say, hey, there is unfortunately some indicators of compromise within your network as we speak. But with that said, I would rather get you guys here in that 80% so we don't have to be there, all right? So with that said, let's get to our contact slide so we can have a minute or two for questions. So here are the contacts for the state of Washington. My supervisors at the bottom.
We'll just let them read it.
Okay,
We're
sure.
out of time.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right. So any questions? Yes. Yep.
Okay, so obviously it's been a hectic few months for CISA.
Yes.
That's an understatement. I'm curious for both of you, how have you seen the impact of the SLCGP program play out in Washington State, and what are the consequences if that program does not continue in Washington State?
Yeah, that's a great question, right? And I'll take that as the state coordinator. So as of now, the SLCG.
The question was impacts of the what's going on with the SLCGP, basically,
Right,
and impacts to Washington.
And consequences if funding was not to continue. Well, I can only speak on where the funding status is now, and so funding for that program has not stopped, right? And so CISA and our partners, right, are continuing to operate as if we are going to continue to receive funding. And now what I do encourage everybody is that if you have been a recipient of the SLCGP, Slice Scoop, then please advocate with your state senator, your representatives, because they're the ones in Congress who are advocating for this vital dollars and this program. All right.